Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Good morning. People who have had a loss in their life will sometimes remark after a period of time, after that loss has passed, that they feel like they're finally coming out from a cloud. There's something that goes on within our biology, within our physiology, that releases a series of enzymes and chemicals within our system that makes us feel like we're in a daze, makes us feel kind of out of it. And the opportunity for a person to return is a difficult and long process. And it takes time. Our system of grief and mourning is well thought out and extremely useful when utilized properly. And what I mean by that is, upon hearing of the death of a loved one, our tradition says what you're supposed to do is focus on the burial. Nothing else. Just ready that person for their final resting place. You're not supposed to go to shul. You're not supposed to say Kaddish. You're just supposed to be absorbed in the details of a funeral. And then when the funeral is over, we offer the words that our tradition suggests, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted amongst the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Let the healing begin. Hamakom yinachem etchem. Let the Almighty help you to begin the healing process. And then there's Shiva, the cocoon of Jewish life. The opportunity to understand that we need a protected environment in which we can simply exist and grow. And then the emergence from that Shiva with a walk around the block. Just to say I want to put my foot in the water but not really start swimming. Walk around the block, my neighborhood, stay within the confines of my surroundings that I am most familiar with. And that leads us to Shloshim, the 30 days, which leads us then ultimately to the year of mourning. And with each step we emerge from that cocoon back to real life, where everything has been put on hold for us in our own individual lives. We begin to emerge into the rest of the world slowly, because it takes time. And there are plenty of people who say, it's not for me, it's a ritual that doesn't make sense to me, I'm going to forego Shiva, I'm going to forego Shloshim, you know what, I'll come back to shul on the yortzeit. But they're going to continue to grieve whether they're involved in the ritual or not. And some people will busy themselves with lots of things to do. They'll become extremely busy so as to not have to think about their loss. But then if you've ever been in that circumstance, you know it catches up with you. I know. It catches up. Catches up with you, because you can't outrun grief. You can't outrun mourning. You can't outrun sadness, because it catches up with you. And this week's Parsha has an extraordinary moment of rebuke in which Moses asks God to go into the land of Israel, and God says no. And if you read the Dvar Torah that you have in front of you, you might understand that better. But it's this morning's Haftorah that gives us the better story. This is the first week of consolation, says our tradition, after the black fast of Tisha B'Av, after the destruction of the temples and all of the people that were involved in those rituals and rites. and the horrific destruction wrought upon our people, this is the week, says our tradition, that is Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of consolation. It's the Shabbat in which we find some healing. What's most interesting to me is that it used to be a custom that this was a weekend for singles up in the Catskills. Remember that? Shabbos Nachamu, they said, was always Shabbos in the Catskills if you wanted to meet your Bashert. It was a way of suggesting that after the weeks of mourning leading up to Tisha B'Av, it was time to celebrate. And in some way, maybe that tradition came about because sometimes we only find consolation and healing in the arms of a loved one. I don't think it really had anything to do with that, quite honestly. The truth is, this week we observed the holiday of Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av it's the Jewish Valentine's Day. And that's why Shabbos Nachamu, everybody went to the Catskills. Oy, we have to mourn the loss of those days. Those were the days. Order everything on the menu. And I say order everything on the menu because, you know what? That's also the way we as Jews find consolation and healing and recovery. We eat it. And we eat it some more. You know, that's the brief history of the Jewish people. They came, they conquered, they tried to kill us, now let's eat. So one of the ways that we have discovered from our tradition that we find healing is maybe through comfort food, and maybe it's through the comfort of another. But I'd like to suggest something less dramatic and certainly not simple, but unfortunately is actually the way it works. David Wolpe wrote a great book. He wrote many great books. One that had a profound impact on my life is one called Healer of Shattered Hearts. It's a title taken really from the Psalms, in which the psalmist says, Harofeh lishvurei lev, that God is the healer of broken hearts. And the premise of the book and the substance of the book is quite simple. And that is that God does bring healing, but it takes time. It doesn't happen in an instant. You can't rush the process. You have to be patient. That's why this morning's Haftarah, beginning with the phrase, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, comfort, find comfort, O my people, says God, is understood by our tradition very simply. Ibn Ezra says, Miharit o rega acharei rega. You wish it could happen fast. You wish you could get over it already. You wish you could stop thinking about your mom or your dad or your spouse or your sibling or your child every day. You wish it would just come already. You'd be done with it. That you could put that burden down. You wish you could just lay it to rest. When they're dead or at rest, let their memory rest and be consoled when their soul departs, says Ben Sira. We wish we could do it. But Ibn Ezra says, Rega acharei rega. It takes putting one foot in front of the other, 1 minute at a time. You can't rush it. And no matter how hard you push it out of your mind, you're just elongating a process that's just going to take time. The Malbim says something even better. Vayan shehagola tavo o kodem hazman mitzad hazechut. It's not going to come in advance of its time. You can't bring healing kodem hazman, before it's time. It just takes time. If you are wounded by somebody and they apologize to you for their wrongdoing, you don't feel better immediately. You don't say, I got what I wanted. Kodem Azman, it doesn't happen before its time. It just takes time, says the Malbim. And you can't rush it. And then finally, the Radak. Rabbi David Kimchi says, Kol ele hanachamot atida limot HaMashiach. You know what? Sometimes full healing, full recovery, full rebound, fully making it back won't happen until some point in the future in a Messianic age when the Messiah comes. There are wrongs that exist in history that have been done to us as a nation, that have been done to other people in the world, in which no amount of apology, no reparations, no amount of excuses will make a difference. That those are mistakes that have happened and they will not be rectified until the days of the Messiah. So you're just going to have to wait. We know it's true here in this country of the wrongs we have done to those who are native to this land. We know it throughout the world in the genocides that have occurred not just to our people but to others as well. There's no amount of apology, there's no reparations amount of money that can be offered. It's just going to take time. Maybe in a Messianic age will things be perfect. But as my father often says, and I noted because I was out in Long Island this week and we passed by a street called Utopia Parkway. Can you imagine? Utopia Parkway. But as my father always remarked, utopia comes from two words, utopis, which means it will never be. Utopis. It's not going to be. It's the possibility that is impossible. So I say to you, the lesson is simple from this morning's Haftorah. Nachamu, nachamu ami. Let each and every one of us within our nation find some consolation. To those whose loss is immediate and new, it's intimate and raw. To those whose loss has been for a few years, pray that your healing continues, that you don't rush the process and that you don't allow anybody to expect you to be better already. It's going to take its time. And no matter what you do, you can't rush the process. And so my prayer for all of us is Harofeh Lishvurei Lev, that God heals our broken hearts at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way. Shabbat Shalom. We continue.